Hello and welcome to the Met Office Deep Dive, our regular in-depth look at the UK's weather for the meteorologically minded. And this week it's going to feature a return of the 0-degree isotherm, a return of the S word, snow, and introducing for the first time on the Deep Dive, a histogram. More on all of that in just a moment, but I thought I'd start with this. This is the satellite image of the, North Atlantic and Europe area over the last few days. It runs from Saturday, the 1st of June, up into the present day. And it's a great way of showing how the weather patterns have evolved and how they are changing during the next few days. And you can identify the position of the jet stream just by this satellite image. So the jet stream is marked out by this streak of cloud, if you can see it there. The start of June, running to the north of the UK. That's where the jet stream was running. But this extra push of cloud towards Greenland, that's a push of the jet stream north on the other side of the Atlantic, and then the cloud sinks south across the UK. That's the jet stream sinking south across the UK, so that over the next few days, this is on a loop, by the way, so we're back to the weekend again. Over the next few days, that sinking line of cloud, the sinking jet stream, will introduce more changeable and much cooler conditions across the UK. Another thing that's quite interesting to me anyway to point out is this closed circulation that we've had over the last few days close to the Azores. Lots of showers and thunderstorms down there. We basically saw a cut-off area of the jet stream just form its own circulation over the Azores. Now, we've got the jet stream, the main branch, dipping south over the UK. And you can see the speckled nature, actually I'll zoom in a touch there, the speckled nature of the clouds coming in at the moment behind this main area of cloud. So over the last couple of days, these speckled clouds here making an appearance into Scotland, and that basically, there we are, that sums it up for the rest of the week. Basically, the jet stream sitting to the south of the UK and much cooler, more showery weather in general for the UK, particularly towards northwestern parts. And that is the current shape of the jet stream. We've got this dip, and we've got this upper low pressure in the dip and this surface area of low pressure you can see near Iceland. And really that's how the situation will remain during the week ahead. So if I press play there, you'll see this cold front coming south. That's going to contain some cloud and some rain crossing southern parts later Tuesday. Into Wednesday, that clears through, and then we're all in this unstable, showery, northwesterly airflow with low pressure remaining anchored to the north of the UK. These weather fronts coming through, occluded fronts, bringing more persistent rain at times, but in general it's showers coming into northwestern parts, the jet stream to the south allowing cooler air to affect the whole of the UK for the next few days up to and including much of the weekend. Here's Friday, that low pressure's remaining more or less in the same place. It's starting to fill, so perhaps becoming less unstable. We've got this large area of high pressure meanwhile sitting to the west of the UK, and so that's allowing the jet stream to continue to sit in the same place. This high pressure's blocking any progression in the system and keeping things very stationary over the next few days. And essentially that northwesterly airflow stays with us into the weekend. But later in the weekend, some signs that that high to the west is going to build in from the west. Very slowly, it has to be said. So very slowly transitioning back to something less cold, less blustery, less showery in the north. But it's probably going to take all weekend and possibly the first day or two of next week before all of us notice the influence of that high pressure. Some areas will notice it first. The south and southwest will be mostly settled end of this week and into the weekend. But it's not until really the middle of next week that that high pressure exerts much more dominant control across the whole of the UK, of course, with these weather fronts potentially toppling in over the top of that high. But let's go back to the beginning, because I just want to put on the temperature at 5,000 feet. Why do we show the temperature at 5,000 feet? It's actually a good proxy for air mass, so where the air is coming from, how cold, how warm the air is. If we put on the temperature at the surface, that's much more affected by day-night differences, mountains, coasts, all this stuff. So this shows basically the character of the air, the personality of the air, and you can see this air mass is coming from the north and northwest. We've got the blues coming back, displacing the oranges. We've got the colder air arriving. And it's going to be blustery, it's going to be windy across many parts of the UK, but particularly across the north and northwest. And I'll be taking a look at wind chill in just a moment as well. But effectively, we've got this air mass with us for the next few days. The nadir of the temperature this week is actually Wednesday, because gradually, as the area of low pressure to the north fills, and with the showers that develop, they help to stir up the temperatures from the surface up to the top of the atmosphere. So they help to mix up the air somewhat. So when you've got a very showery airflow, it does tend to slightly warm up the air eventually. And also, of course, the source of the air becomes increasingly cut off, so it's not necessarily directly from the Arctic. So gradually, the air becomes less cold. Wednesday is the dip in temperatures, both by day and by night, and then gradually by the weekend things are becoming a little less cool, but we're not looking at above average temperatures really until at least next week. There's that high that wants to move in through the weekend, but it is going to take its time, and really it's only as that high pressure builds and the winds begin to ease through the start of next week that temperatures are likely to start to climb to average or slightly above average in places. And let's take a look at the weather quickly, because really it's very similar weather over the next few days, so I'm not going to go into tremendous detail. Tuesday's the day where many places are seeing outbreaks of rain across the country from north to south, and you can see this band of rain later Tuesday. It fragments, so it's showery on and off rain across southern and southeastern parts. It moves into the continent, and that's the cold front. Then we're all into this unstable northwesterly airflow. Let's put on the cloud as well. And what you can see are a lot of showers. Just pause it there, that's midday Wednesday. Showers even across some southern and central parts. Wouldn't rule out a shower anywhere in the UK, but you know, the further south you are, the less frequent, the less widespread they'll be, the greater chance of staying mostly dry effectively with some bright spells. It's going to be less windy in the south as well, but some patchy cumulus, stratocumulus cloud out there. Now, further north and northwest, you can see the showers become more frequent, and so northern and western Scotland certainly seeing frequent showers, perhaps some small hail, some rumbles of thunder as well, and over the mountains some snow. I'm going to be looking at that separately in just a moment. Skip forward to Thursday. Really, it's more of the same. Yeah, a clear start to the day, a quite chilly start in many places, but we've got further shower development, further cloud development as the day goes on. So the sunniest part of the day will be in the morning. The cloud builds. Again, mostly dry in the south with some bright or sunny spells, but a cool breeze. Further north, that gusty wind blowing in frequent showers across northern and western Scotland, in particular parts of Northern Ireland, northern and western England, as well as parts of North Wales. But effectively, it's very similar to Wednesday and very similar again on Friday. Occluded fronts will come through at times, so some more prolonged rain moving through the northwest of the UK, perhaps from time to time. It'll move through quickly. Effectively, it's showery over the next few days, with the showers focused particularly across the northwest of the UK, but always a chance of the odd fleeting shower further south. And this is how Wednesday unfolds into the weekend. Another pulse of those north-northwesterly winds, further showers coming through across Scotland, plenty of mostly fine weather further south, certainly not a heat wave. Temperatures a little below average across most parts, but with lighter winds further south, with some bright or sunny spells coming through. Not feeling terribly unpleasant either. Of course, the sun is quite strong at this time of year. So that's Saturday, and really Saturday's another similar day to Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Showers mostly across northwestern parts of the UK. Now, let's take a look a little bit more in depth at temperatures, because that's the thing that is most interesting this week, of course. We're in the first proper week of meteorological summer, but temperatures are falling this week because of that airflow. The winds are coming from the northwest. And so these are the maximum temperatures on Tuesday. And the numbers that show up here, these are the temperatures that are likely to be experienced in main urban areas. So we're talking about 14, 15 in the north, 16, 17 for central areas, perhaps a 20 there for the south and southeast, or 21. Into Wednesday, and you'll notice those temperatures have come down by a degree or 2 or 3 degrees, mid-teens at best in many places, perhaps 17 there in the southeast, 12 or 13 for Scotland. And by Friday, similar sorts of values, so low teens up to high teens perhaps. And Saturday, once again, we're talking about perhaps a slight recovery in temperatures, but very little difference. So how does that compare with average? This is Wednesday's maximum temperatures compared to this is the June average, by the way, so it's the average that you normally see with the month as a whole, and of course June tends to warm up from the start to the finish, so you would expect slightly below average temperatures at the start of June compared with the whole of June. But this shows that quite widely across northwestern parts of the UK, temperatures are several degrees below the June average. But this is Wednesday, and then you'll notice slightly less cold on Thursday, not much in it really, a degree or so. Again, some recovery on Friday and into Saturday as well. But the greatest anomaly is across the northwest of the UK, closer to normal there across the south and southeast. Another way of showing temperatures, we love showing this on the deep dive, click on the maximum temperatures, is by these graphs. So this shows the maximum temperature out to Sunday for a specific point in the graph. At the moment it's just there to the south of Manchester, but if I put my pen on the screen and scroll around, you can see that many central parts of England there, we've got a maximum of 13 degrees on Wednesday, some recovery there to 14 or 15 later this week. If I go a bit further south, again you can see the coldest day there near Southampton, 14 degrees on Wednesday, some recovery up to 17 degrees by the weekend. Moving down towards the far southwest, this is Cornwall, 12 degrees there, showing for Wednesday, 13 Celsius, and some recovery. Southeast, so probably the warmest part of the country, around London, 14 degrees on Wednesday, recovery to 17 or 18 by the weekend. And we can just draw a little line and travel north. There's the Pennines. We'd expect it to be a bit colder there. The Grampians. And yeah, you can see how chilly it is, but some recovery there by Sunday. In the far north of Scotland, temperatures, these are the maximum temperatures, 7 or 8 Celsius. And for Northern Ireland as well, their coldest day, quite clearly, Wednesday. Now what's interesting about this is that it's showing values that are lower than those urban areas that I mentioned earlier, because those urban areas, you get slightly warmer air, and these are where most people live, these places, but this is sampling much of the countryside, obviously. But another way of showing the distribution of temperatures across the country is by using one of these, a histogram. Now this is very experimental and it might not work. Let me know if this is just too confusing, or if it could be improved or made clearer. Literally, this is 2 hours old, this graph. I drew it up in my lunchtime. Just thought I'd play with something a bit different for once, because this shows the distribution of temperatures across the United Kingdom, the land areas, and it's sampling the temperature data at 2 kilometre resolution. So if you divide up the whole of the UK into 2 kilometre squares, and then you count up how many squares are at, say, 6 degrees, how many are at 12 degrees, it counts them up here. And this is the count. This is the number of grid squares. It's an exponential scale, by the way. So there's the 100 marker, there's the 10,000 marker. So that just helps to show up some of those lower numbers. Another thing to point out is that this is showing both the daytime maximum and the overnight minimum temperatures. So this is Wednesday. So this is showing Wednesday's morning's minimum temperatures, so the temperatures people will be waking up to on Wednesday morning, and the minimum temperatures are coloured up in this kind of blue-grey colour. And then the maximum temperatures, so that Wednesday afternoon's numbers basically, showing up in the orangey colour there. Apologies if I've got the colours wrong, I'm completely colourblind, I've no idea, but that's how it looks to me. Now, what this is showing is that Wednesday morning's minimum temperatures are mostly going to be in the range of 2 to 6 degrees. That's where these highest counts are, up to 10,000 grid squares, okay? But there are a few grid squares, 100 or so, that are showing below freezing. So that's what that's showing. And you can see, this is useful to see the extremes. So some grid squares as low as -1, -2 degrees, but not many. Other grid squares, quite a number of them, are in the mid-single figures on Wednesday morning. By the way, I've also limited this to everywhere below 200 metres, so it's not sampling hills and mountains, just to make it a bit clearer. Also, Wednesday afternoon, we've got the maximum temperatures, and what you can see there is that there's a lot of sites that are showing 12 to 16 degrees, a few that are showing 18 degrees. So what you can see there is that across the landmass of the UK on Wednesday, many places are starting the day with mid-single figures. A few spots are starting the day lower than that. Many places are ending the afternoon with temperatures in the mid-teens generally. That's where a lot of these are clustered. But then there are a few more extreme spots that are warmer than that, up to the high teens. Now, that might be where most people live, for example, the centre of London. But this is just looking at the land area of the United Kingdom. That's Wednesday. We skip forward to Thursday, and you can see there's a bit of a change there. So this is Wednesday, this is Thursday. There are a few more Thursday morning with these lower numbers. So a few more parts, land areas, a few more grid squares that are below freezing. But equally, there are a few more in the afternoon that are warm. So a warmer afternoon, slightly colder start to the day potentially, but there's a greater spread, so greater variability across the UK. Watch what happens if I change it to Friday, and fewer of these colder values. Less spread actually as we start Friday. So this is Friday morning. Most places are mid to high single figures, so we haven't really got a frost on Friday morning anywhere. And then on Friday afternoon, there are more of these grid squares that are up to 16 to 18 Celsius. So you can see this warming trend, but also there's less variability, and that suggests that there's perhaps a bit more cloud cover on Friday, a slight change in wind direction, it becomes a bit more westerly for a time, and so there's less of a contrast across the UK and less cold air in place. By Saturday, actually, that spread gets a bit bigger again. It's a colder start in some places, so more clear skies, perhaps lighter winds as well, a bit of a colder start, but equally, by the afternoon, we're back into slightly higher numbers, high teens, a few spots, 20 Celsius or so. So I've no idea if any of that made sense, but I thought I'd experiment with it, get your feedback, and see where we go from there, if we ever want to show this again or if it's a complete disaster. Just let me know in the comments. But that's effectively everything I wanted to show you for this week's deep dive. And oh, I promised it, didn't I? The S word, snow, and I haven't mentioned it yet, so just quickly, wants to look at the freezing level. We have shown this before, the height of the 0 degree isotherm, and you can just about make out the UK there. I know the border isn't particularly clear, but you can see the towns and cities. And what this shows is the height above sea level of the 0 degree isotherm. And the top colour on the key there, above 1400 metres, means that the 0 degree isotherm is above all hills and mountains in the UK. You're not going to get snow where it's that colour, basically. But you can see these other colours coming into the northwest on Tuesday. And if we skip ahead to the start of Wednesday, because that's when the coldest air arrives across northern parts of the UK. And we've got these different shades of green across England, Wales and Parts of Ireland there, some blues into Northern Ireland, the far north of England and Scotland. And the blues would suggest a freezing level of 600 to 800 metres. And a general rule of thumb is that you take off 200 metres because the snow doesn't immediately turn to rain when it goes from the 0 degree isotherm into warmer air below. There's a difference of about 200 metres, so it takes about 200 metres because of something called evaporative cooling, and also if the precipitation is heavy, then that gap becomes even bigger. So typically, a rule of thumb is you take 200 metres off these values, and that's the height of the snow. So what we're looking at is about 600 metres potentially for Wednesday's showers across Scotland, perhaps the far north of England, for some snow to be falling. And then later Wednesday, you can see the greens pushing those blues further north again. So really that dip, that nadir in temperature, in freezing level, is Wednesday morning. That's when the greatest chance of some snow coming down to 600 metres. By the time we get to the end of the week, the freezing level's above 1,000 metres again. So really it's the very tops of the Scottish mountains, for example, where we're likely to see some white stuff. But this isn't particularly unusual for June. We've checked with our climate experts, and they've suggested this happens, snow on the Scottish mountains, every 3 to 5 years. So it's pretty interesting to be talking about snow for the first time for a few weeks, if not months, but nothing especially unusual about it. And it's Wednesday morning that we're most likely to see those snow levels come down to about 600 metres or so before gradually warming up later in the week. And that really is it from me, and hope you've enjoyed it. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you've got any comments, any feedback, any suggestions. We like hearing from you. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you want to see more of these things in the future. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.